All right, let's dive right into one of the biggest puzzles out there, the human brain. We're going to explore the most complex, most powerful, and honestly, the weirdest object in the known universe. We'll look at its strange little glitches, its incredible powers, and the mysteries that make us question everything.
You know, people call it creation's masterpiece, and they're not kidding. This 3-pound supercomputer that we all carry around in our heads, it's everything. It's our consciousness, our memories, our personality. It's so unbelievably complex that we're really just beginning to figure out what it's truly capable of.
And to give you a sense of the sheer scale of this thing, think about this number, 100 billion. That's roughly how many neurons are firing away inside your skull right now. That's about the same number of stars in our entire Milky Way galaxy. It's this mind-bogglingly huge network that creates, well, your entire reality. So, with all that incredible hardware, you'd think the brain would be this perfect logical command center, right? Just rationally processing information and making flawless decisions. The ultimate biological machine.
Well, what if I told you that this so-called perfect machine has some really strange bugs? It turns out our brains are constantly taking these bizarre little shortcuts that make us act in ways that are anything but logical.
Let's actually look at a few of these common glitches. These are the psychological quirks that show just how strange our brain's operating system really is. And I guarantee you've experienced these, even if you had no idea what they were called.
Okay, first up is something called the pratfall effect. Now, this sounds totally backward, but we actually tend to like really competent, successful people more after they mess up. You know, seeing a brilliant person spill coffee all over themselves. It makes them seem more human, more relatable. Turns out, being absolutely perfect can be kind of off-putting.
And then there's the spotlight effect. Oh man, we've all been here. You ever walk around all day convinced that every single person is staring at that tiny stain on your shirt? Well, here's the reality. They're not. People notice our little flaws way, way less than we think. We feel like we're walking around with a giant spotlight on us, but honestly, everyone else is too busy worrying about their own spotlight to notice ours.
So, what all this really shows is that while we like to think we're the logical captains of our own ship, our brain is often just on autopilot. It's taking these weird, emotional shortcuts to get through the day. It's really less of a perfect calculator and more of a social survival tool.
Now, if our brains are playing these kinds of tricks on us in our everyday lives, just imagine what happens when we turn off the lights and go to sleep. Because that is where things get truly bizarre.
Every single night, our brain drags us into the wild, illogical, and sometimes terrifying world of our dreams, a place where the fundamental rules of reality just completely fall apart. So, why do dreams feel so incredibly strange? Well, there's a pretty straightforward neurological reason. When we're deep in sleep, the part of our brain that handles logical reasoning, the prefrontal cortex, basically just clocks out. It takes a break. But at the same time, our emotional centers, they kick into high gear. And that combination gives you these vivid, emotionally charged stories that are totally free from the rules of logic. It's why in a dream you don't even question the fact that you can fly.
But why do we even do it? What's the point? Well, one theory is that dreams are like a virtual reality simulator for survival, letting us practice how to react to dangerous situations. Another idea is that they're a hotbed of creativity, and there's some amazing proof for this. Paul McCartney literally dreamed the melody for Yesterday, and Dmitri Mendeleev, the chemist, he saw the entire structure of the periodic table in a dream.
So, dreams show us what the world looks like without logic. But the brain's deepest, most profound mysteries, they start to emerge when we're pushed to the absolute limit, right to the boundary between life and death.
What is going on in our minds in those final moments? For a long, long time, the assumption was just nothing, silence. But it turns out modern science is finding that something truly extraordinary might be happening.
So check out this timeline. It is remarkable. The moment the heart stops beating, normal brain activity usually shuts down within about 30 seconds. But, and this is a huge but, studies on cardiac arrest patients are suggesting that some form of conscious awareness can actually stick around for up to 3 minutes after someone is clinically dead.
In fact, there was this one major study of over 100 cardiac arrest survivors who were brought back to life. And a staggering 46% of them, almost half, had some memories from that time they were clinically dead. They talked about seeing bright lights, feeling an incredible sense of peace. Some were even aware of the doctors in the room trying to save them.
This kind of lingering awareness, it just forces us to ask this monumental question.
If our consciousness isn't strictly tied to a beating heart or even those standard brainwave patterns, then what even is it, and where does it actually come from?
And that question leads us to our final and, I have to say, most mind-bending section. We are about to look at a real medical case that challenges the very foundation of everything we think we know about the brain and consciousness itself.
Seriously, prepare yourself because this story sounds like it's straight out of science fiction. Back in 2007, some doctors in France had a 44-year-old man walk in complaining about some weakness in his leg. What they found on his brain scan would make news all over the world.
Just look at this. The image on the left is a typical healthy brain. The image on the right, that was the patient's brain. His skull wasn't filled with brain tissue, it was almost entirely filled with fluid. All of his brain matter had been squished into just a thin little layer against the inside of his skull.
And yet, this man was living a completely normal life. He had a job as a civil servant, he was married, he had 2 kids. His IQ was 75, which is lower than average, sure, but it's not considered a disability. He was a functioning, conscious human being. This one case just throws a giant wrench into all the theories that say consciousness has to live in specific parts of the brain.
So what does this mean? How is this even possible? Well, it points to this incredible idea called neuroplasticity, the brain's amazing ability to rewire and reorganize itself. It suggests that consciousness might not depend on how much brain tissue you have or where it is, but on the network itself, on how the neurons manage to find a way to connect. The brain isn't just hardware, it's incredibly adaptive software.
And speaking of networks, let's take that idea and just zoom all the way out. I mean, way, way out. On the left, you see a network of neurons in a brain. And on the right, that's a computer simulation of the cosmic web, how dark matter is spread across the entire universe. The similarity in the structure, it's absolutely uncanny. It links the tiny network inside our heads with the vast network of the cosmos.
Which leaves us with one final, wild thought to chew on. This shocking resemblance has led some scientists and philosophers to wonder, what if the universe itself is structured like a giant brain? And if that's true, could it be that each of us, with our own individual consciousness, is like a single neuron, just firing away inside a much larger cosmic mind? Something to think about.
Health is the most precious gift. If this video helped you or someone you love, please like, subscribe, and share so more families can stay safe and healthy.